Imagine, if you will, a shadow world existing alongside our own, a realm not seen by the eyes but felt by the heart and mind. In this hidden dimension dwell entities that feed not on flesh, but on fear, malice, and weakness, preying upon humanity's darkest impulses. They are not spirits in the gentle guiding sense, nor the familiar angels of benevolence. These are beings born from chaos and deception, lurking just beyond the veil of the material world, waiting to exploit every lapse in vigilance, every flicker of anger, and every indulgence in selfishness. To think of them is to feel the chill of a wind that carries whispers of rage, envy, and deceit, reminding us that evil is not merely abstract. It has form, intention, and a relentless hunger for the soul. Among the countless religious traditions that attempt to make sense of the cosmic order, Zoroastrianism stands out as one of the earliest structured monotheistic systems, a faith that arose thousands of years ago in ancient Persia and offered a vision of the universe defined by a stark, relentless struggle between light and darkness. At its heart, this faith proclaims a singular, benevolent creator, Ahura Mazda, whose existence is opposed by Angra Mainyu, a force of destruction and chaos. Yet within this grand cosmic duel, the battle is not abstract. It manifests in the world through entities known as Daevas, malevolent spirits whose cunning and cruelty threaten to undermine human morality, social cohesion, and spiritual progress. This video is an exploration of those entities, the Daevas, the demons that haunt the Zoroastrian imagination and serve as embodiments of humanity's most destructive tendencies. We will look closely at the most terrifying among them, examining the ways they infiltrate human thought, manipulate desire, and sow chaos in both personal and societal realms. By understanding these spiritual adversaries, we begin to see not only the moral and cosmic stakes of Zoroastrianism, but also a mirror of our own inner struggles. Their influence is not just historical or mythological. It resonates in the patterns of our fears, our impulses, and the ethical choices we confront every day. Before delving into the individual demons and their terrifying powers, it is essential to grasp the foundation of Zoroastrian demonology, the conceptual framework that defines the universe as a battlefield where every thought, action, and emotion is caught in the tension between light and darkness. Only with this understanding can we appreciate the magnitude of threat these Daevas pose, and the courage, discipline, and wisdom required to resist them. To truly grasp the terror of the Daevas, we must first understand the framework in which they exist, the cosmic structure that defines Zoroastrian thought. At its essence, Zoroastrianism presents a universe governed by dualism, a perpetual struggle between forces of light and darkness. On one side stands Ahura Mazda, the embodiment of goodness, truth, and order, whose essence nurtures life, wisdom, and moral clarity. On the other side lurks Angra Mainyu, the destructive counterpart, a force whose existence is devoted to chaos, falsehood, and corruption. This duality is not merely abstract or symbolic. It manifests continuously in the world, in human actions, societal structures, and even in the spiritual trials faced by each individual. The Daevas are the tangible expressions of this malevolent force, the agents of Angra Mainyu, who work tirelessly to destabilize the cosmic order. Daevas are not simply mischievous spirits, or the equivalent of minor villains. They are fundamentally malevolent entities that thrive on human weakness. They represent specific distortions of morality, each embodying a particular vice or destructive tendency. One deceives through lies and falsehood, another manipulates desire and indulgence, another stokes the fires of rage and violence. In essence, Every Daeva personifies a facet of the darkness within and around humanity, externalized into a figure whose presence is feared and whose influence is insidious. They are not neutral forces or natural disasters. They are intentional, purposeful, and morally opposed to the divine. Opposing these forces are the Amesha Spentas, the holy immortals who act as the emanations of Ahura Mazda, upholding truth, justice, and righteousness. Where the Daevas incite chaos, the Amesha Spentas guide humanity toward harmony. Their struggle is mirrored in every human decision, creating a battlefield not only across the cosmos, but within each person. The Daevas, in essence, are the anti-Amesha Spentas. Every action of goodness has a corresponding threat of corruption. Every moral insight has a shadow of deception, and every potential for joy and fulfillment carries the risk of indulgence and distortion. Understanding this dualistic struggle is critical because it frames the very nature of evil in Zoroastrianism as intentional, personalized, and deeply entwined with human behavior. It is not a vague or distant concept, but one that manifests through thought, speech, and action, through fear, desire, and the choices we make. To confront the Daevas is not merely to ward off abstract evil, it is to recognize the subtle ways in which human weakness becomes a doorway for chaos, to see how the moral and spiritual order can be undermined from within. With this foundation, we can now turn our attention to the most fearsome Daevas, the ones whose names have echoed through ancient scriptures and whose influence is described with terror and precision. Each one represents a unique aspect of human vulnerability, a different mechanism through which darkness infiltrates life and spirit. By exploring them, we confront not only the external threats imagined by Zoroastrianism, but also the internal struggles that remain profoundly relevant today. The first of the Daevas we encounter is Eshma, the demon of wrath. Eshma is not a vague force of anger. He is a sentient, purposeful embodiment of rage, a spirit whose entire existence revolves around inflaming human fury and violence. Ancient texts describe him as a relentless, fiery entity, one who thrives in moments of conflict, whispering hatred into the hearts of men and women alike. His presence is subtle at first, a slight irritation, a prick of resentment, but left unchecked, this grows into uncontrollable fury, leading to physical confrontation, bitter arguments, and even societal unrest. Eshma's influence extends beyond the personal, for when communities fall prey to his manipulation, chaos spreads like wildfire, destabilizing families, tribes, and nations. In Zoroastrian tradition, this is no mere metaphor. Eshma is depicted as an active force in the world, a being who delights in turning reason into rage and peace into conflict. Eshma's terror is also symbolic. He represents the destructive potential of unchecked emotion, the way anger can distort perception, cloud judgment, and create cycles of violence that seem impossible to break. The ancient texts warn that succumbing to Eshma's influence is not simply a personal failing. It is a spiritual danger that weakens the connection to Ahura Mazda, undermines justice, and empowers chaos itself. The struggle against him, therefore, requires vigilance, self-discipline, and the conscious effort to temper anger with patience and insight. It is a battle as much within the human soul as it is in the cosmic order. Next is Aka Manah, the demon of the evil mind. Unlike Eshma, whose approach is through emotion and external conflict, Aka Manah operates in the hidden corridors of thought, quietly corrupting reason, morality, and spiritual clarity. He encourages selfishness, perversion of ethical judgment, and the distortion of wisdom, subtly guiding humans toward cruel or deceitful actions. This Daeva's power lies in manipulation, in the quiet seduction of the mind, turning even well-intentioned individuals toward moral corruption. Texts describe him as planting seeds of doubt, twisting perception, and fostering illusions that convince humans their destructive choices are justified. His influence is profoundly intimate, for he does not act through overt force, but through the insidious shaping of thought, making the observer complicit in the chaos he propagates. Aka Manah's work also highlights a deeper philosophical point in Zoroastrianism, that evil is not only external but internal, a reflection of the vulnerabilities inherent in human cognition. The spiritual path, therefore, involves more than avoiding obvious dangers. It requires cultivating discernment, resisting temptation, and seeking the guidance of wisdom in every decision. To confront Aka Manah is to confront the ways our own minds can betray us, the quiet darkness that can creep into our reasoning and distort our perception of right and wrong. Following him is Indra, the deceiver of sensual pleasure. Unlike Eshma's rage or Aka Manah's mental corruption, Indra preys upon desire, exploiting human indulgence to foster spiritual and moral decay. Ancient scriptures portray Indra as a seducer, a tempter who uses the allure of wealth, luxury, and physical pleasure to distract humans from their higher purpose. The danger here is not immediately violent or confrontational, but deeply insidious, for the pursuit of excess can quietly erode the principles of truth and righteousness. Indra represents the subtle yet powerful ways in which indulgence, when left unchecked, can dominate a person's life, diverting attention from spiritual goals, promoting selfishness, and eroding community and moral cohesion. Indra's influence also underscores a key aspect of Zoroastrian ethics, that discipline and restraint are central to spiritual health. The texts warn that giving in to temptation, surrendering to desire, or placing personal gratification above ethical responsibility creates fertile ground for chaos, making humans easy prey for both spiritual and social corruption. In this sense, Indra is not only a demon of pleasure, but a mirror reflecting the human tendency toward self-indulgence and distraction from higher ideals. The next Daeva, Saurva, is the demon of oppression. He embodies tyranny, domination, and the suffering imposed by cruelty, both on an individual and societal scale. Saurva thrives wherever fear, injustice, and exploitation exist, encouraging acts of violence and subjugation, and reinforcing systems of power that prioritize control over compassion. His presence is palpable in any society where empathy is absent, where rulers or individuals wield authority without restraint, and where fear becomes the instrument of governance. In Zoroastrian texts, Saurva is depicted not merely as a distant force, but as actively influencing rulers and communities, tempting them to perpetuate injustice and to normalize suffering as a tool of control. Saurva's domain also serves as a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of morality and governance in Zoroastrian thought. Evil is not only personal, but social. It spreads through systems and structures, influencing collective behavior. Combating Saurva, therefore, is not limited to individual morality. It demands vigilance in societal ethics, leadership, and the pursuit of justice, demonstrating how spiritual principles extend into every dimension of human life. Finally, there is Taromaiti, the demon of lies and falsehood. Taromaiti's power lies in deception, in corrupting truth and spreading mistrust. He instills doubt, encourages betrayal, and makes clarity almost impossible to achieve, creating confusion not only in thought, but in relationships, governance, and community cohesion. The psychological impact of Taromaiti is profound, as humans who succumb to his influence can no longer distinguish between reality and illusion, between justice and manipulation. Ancient rituals and prayers aimed at repelling him emphasize vigilance, moral integrity, and commitment to truth as the only defenses against the chaos he generates. Taromaiti's influence serves as a warning about the fragility of trust and the destructive potential of falsehood. In both personal and collective contexts, deception can unravel societies, destroy relationships, and create spiritual paralysis, illustrating that evil in Zoroastrian thought is multifaceted, adaptable, and relentlessly strategic. Each of these Daevas demonstrates not only the diversity of threats that humanity faces, but also the sophisticated understanding the ancients had of the interplay between emotion, desire, thought, and social order. When we examine these terrifying Daevas together, a pattern begins to emerge, revealing the underlying principles of Zoroastrian demonology. One of the most striking aspects is the moral consequences tied to human behavior. These demons do not exist in a vacuum. They are drawn to weakness, feeding on anger, deceit, indulgence, and oppression. They exploit the vulnerabilities inherent in human nature, turning small lapses in judgment into destructive forces with far-reaching consequences. In this sense, the Daevas function both as external agents of chaos and as mirrors reflecting humanity's own moral failings. Their terror is not purely physical or fantastical. It is psychological, spiritual, and profoundly ethical, reminding individuals that their choices, however minor they may seem, carry weight in the cosmic struggle between light and darkness. Cosmically, the Daevas serve a unique function within Zoroastrian thought. They are not accidental or peripheral to the universe. They are necessary forces in the balance of creation, the counterpoint to the benevolence of Ahura Mazda and the guidance of the Amesha Spentas. In this dualistic framework, darkness defines and sharpens the light, chaos illuminates the value of order, and evil provides a backdrop against which righteousness can manifest. Far from being meaningless tormentors, the Daevas underscore the stakes of the cosmic battle, making human choices consequential not only for personal morality, but for the maintenance of universal harmony. Their presence dramatizes the spiritual war that rages across time and space, reminding mortals that the struggle between good and evil is ongoing, unrelenting, and profoundly serious. From a psychological or Gnostic perspective, these demons can also be seen as externalized reflections of internal corruption. Each Daeva represents a particular aspect of human consciousness that, if left unchecked, can lead to suffering and moral decay. Wrath, selfishness, lust, oppression, and deceit are not merely ethical failings. They are spiritual vulnerabilities given form and voice. In encountering these entities, humans are forced to confront their own inner darkness, to recognize that the war between light and dark is fought as much within the mind and heart as it is in the broader cosmos. This dual reading, both literal and allegorical, allows Zoroastrianism to function on multiple levels, as a cosmology, a moral guide, and a psychological framework, offering insight into the mechanisms of corruption while prescribing paths of vigilance and discipline. Another common theme is the systematic approach to the threats posed by the Daevas. Each demon is tied to specific human weaknesses and social consequences, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of how personal vice can evolve into social disorder. Wrath leads to violence and societal breakdown. Indulgence corrodes spiritual clarity and social cohesion. Lies undermine trust, and oppression fosters fear and cruelty. By categorizing evil in this way, Zoroastrian texts offer both a diagnosis and a prescription, warning against moral and spiritual laxity while emphasizing proactive engagement through ethical living, ritual observance, and conscious reflection. Ultimately, these recurring patterns highlight a fundamental principle: that evil is neither random nor powerless, and that virtue requires active cultivation. The Daevas remind humanity that vigilance, ethical awareness, and spiritual discipline are not abstract ideals, but essential tools for survival in both the cosmic and personal realms. Their terror is designed to educate, to illuminate the consequences of weakness, and to emphasize that moral and spiritual awareness are not optional. They are central to existence itself. Confronting the Daevas is not a matter of casual awareness. It is a disciplined, deliberate engagement with both spiritual and moral realities. Ancient Zoroastrian practices offer a window into the ways humans attempted to defend themselves against these malevolent forces. Rituals and prayers were central, not as mere superstition, but as tools to align the human spirit with the cosmic order and repel chaos. Recitations of sacred texts, invocations of Ahura Mazda, and ceremonial acts of purification were believed to fortify the soul, creating a spiritual armor that made it difficult for demons like Ishma, Aka Manah, or Taromaiti to gain influence. These practices were exacting, demanding intention, focus, and moral clarity, reflecting the belief that spiritual protection is inseparable from ethical conduct. Ritual was not a passive shield, but an active engagement with the universe, a statement of alignment with truth, order, and righteousness. Ethical living, rooted in the principle of Asha, truth, order, and righteousness, was another primary defense against the Daevas. Zoroastrian teachings emphasize that moral vigilance is more than a social guideline. It is a spiritual imperative. Anger, selfishness, indulgence, oppression, and deceit provide openings for these malevolent entities, and so cultivating honesty, patience, justice, and self-discipline serves as a form of spiritual resistance. By living according to Asha, individuals not only protect themselves, but actively strengthen the light in the world, tipping the cosmic balance against darkness. Ethical living, therefore, is inseparable from spiritual warfare. Every act of compassion, every refusal to indulge destructive impulses, every commitment to truth and fairness is a step in repelling the forces of chaos. In addition to ritual and ethics, modern interpretations of the Daevas allow for a psychological reading of their influence. They can be understood as allegories for inner demons, manifestations of the emotional, cognitive, and moral struggles that each person faces. Ishma's fury becomes the rage we must control. Aka Manah's manipulations mirror self-deception and flawed reasoning. Indra's temptations reflect the perils of unchecked desire. Saurva embodies the destructive dynamics of power and cruelty, and Taromaiti warns of the corrosive effects of lies, both outward and inward. Viewed in this light, the battle against Daevas is both external and internal, a recognition that spiritual vigilance requires insight into the workings of our own hearts and minds, as much as it requires resistance to forces beyond us. The strategies for confronting these demons are, therefore, multifaceted. They combine ritual observance, moral discipline, social responsibility, and self-awareness. The ancients taught that there is no one-size-fits-all defense. The fight is ongoing, contextual, and deeply personal. Each human encounter with temptation, anger, deception, or cruelty is a microcosm of the cosmic struggle, a battlefield on which the principles of light and darkness are contested moment by moment. This perspective imbues even the mundane choices of daily life with cosmic significance, turning ethical reflection and personal discipline into acts of profound spiritual consequence. Furthermore, confronting these entities often involves a community dimension. Zoroastrian texts emphasize collective responsibility, ritual gatherings, and ethical modeling as ways to strengthen society against the corrosive influence of Daevas. The spiritual battle is never solely individual. It is a shared responsibility, reinforcing the idea that the moral and cosmic order depends not only on personal vigilance, but on the structures, relationships, and norms that shape human interaction. In sum, the confrontation with Daevas is a comprehensive engagement of mind, body, and spirit. It is a fight fought through ritual, ethics, psychological awareness, and communal action. It is a recognition that evil is deliberate, adaptive, and multifaceted, and that the cultivation of virtue, clarity, and discipline is the most powerful defense against its influence. The Daevas of Zoroastrianism are far more than abstract figures of myth. They are terrifying embodiments of the forces that threaten both the world and the human soul. From Aishma, whose wrath ignites violence and destruction, to Aka Manah, who twists the mind toward cruelty and selfishness, from Indra, the tempter of indulgence, to Saurva, the enforcer of oppression, and Taromaiti, the master of lies, these demons illustrate the many ways chaos, corruption, and moral decay can take shape in the universe. Their influence extends across emotion, thought, desire, and society itself, demonstrating a terrifying versatility and persistence. Ancient Zoroastrian texts depict them not as distant, powerless shadows, but as active forces, constantly seeking openings to invade human life and disrupt the order of creation. Their presence reminds us that evil is not theoretical. It is intentional, organized, and intimately connected to the weaknesses that dwell within all of us. Yet the story of the Daevas is not one of hopeless terror. Their existence also illuminates the principles by which humans can resist corruption, restore balance, and cultivate spiritual resilience. Through ritual, ethical discipline, vigilance, and the conscious pursuit of truth and righteousness, humans can confront these forces, creating a personal and communal alignment with the principles of light and order. The cosmic struggle is mirrored in our everyday choices. The restraint of anger, the rejection of temptation, the defense of justice, the pursuit of honesty, and the cultivation of moral courage all serve as acts of spiritual warfare. In this sense, the battle against the Daevas is both vast and deeply personal, extending across the cosmos while remaining embedded in the rhythms of individual life. Moreover, understanding the Daevas as allegorical reflections of inner weakness and moral corruption gives their lessons continued relevance in the modern world. Anger, deceit, indulgence, cruelty, and manipulation are not problems of the distant past. They are realities of human existence today. By confronting these tendencies within ourselves, by practicing self-awareness and moral discipline, we engage in a living struggle against the same forces that Zoroastrianism recognized millennia ago. This dual perspective, seeing demons both as external cosmic agents and as internal psychological challenges, creates a powerful lens through which to examine personal growth, societal ethics, and the consequences of moral failure. Ultimately, the Daevas remind us that vigilance is not optional and that the fight against darkness is never over. Evil, in all its forms, can take root wherever we are inattentive, selfish, or indifferent. By understanding these terrifying entities, by recognizing the many ways in which chaos and corruption manifest in the world and in ourselves, we are better equipped to resist their influence, strengthen our moral clarity, and align with the forces of light and order. The story of these demons is a warning, a lesson, and a call to reflection. A stark reminder that the battle between good and evil is both cosmic and deeply personal, and that our choices, moment by moment, shape the ongoing struggle of the universe itself.